Welcome again, everyone. John V here from PhoneArena. You're watching our in-depth video comparison between the Apple iPad 2 and the HP TouchPad. Both tablets are available right now. You can pick it up at a variety of different retailers. Also priced at $500 for the 16GB Wi-Fi base model, so similar in that aspect. So right now, I'm just going to show you some of the features of both tablets and compare and contrast one another and see which one is going to be the better one for you. So sit back, relax, and let's get the show started. First of all, let's just talk about the design of both tablets, and there's no arguing about it. The iPad 2 is by far the better of the two, both in choice of materials and also its craftsmanship. It just feels like a premium tablet, and when you take into consideration its $500 price point for both tablets, it's definitely fitting with the iPad. With the touchpad, it just resorts to mostly a plastic exterior, which is a fingerprint magnet with the rear covering here, whereas on the iPad 2, it's a brushed aluminum rear cover, which is very sturdy, and on top of that, it looks very clean. So you're not going to have too much of an issue in terms of getting dirty. Also, the touchpad is also heavier, surprisingly, even with its plastic casing versus the iPad 2. And the iPad 2 is just really nice just because it's razor-thin profile, so it's very streamlined and feels like a solid tablet all around. So by far, the iPad 2 definitely has it when it comes to looks. Both tablets feature IPS displays, and they measure up at 9.7 inches and also a 4:3 aspect ratio. The resolution is also the same, 768 by 1024 pixels. So as far as pixel density, it's going to be the same. You're not going to notice any difference between the two. Details really good, very visible when it comes to fine text, so you're not going to have too much of a problem. Color production is very natural with both tablets, and they produce a good amount of color tones. Not overly saturated, which is nice, but just some accurate looking colors. Viewing angles are also no different. They have really good ones, so you have visibility of what's on screen, and colors retain their luminancy in pretty much every angle you look at it. But the one distinction between the two is the fact that the iPad 2 sports the higher brightness output. In outdoor conditions, it's a lot easier. It just seems like the touchpad's display is a little bit dimmer. Continuing to show the resemblance of one another, they feature single buttons right below the touch screen. They're both very tactile, but the nice thing about the touchpad is that there is an LED light underneath that used for its notification system. Likewise, the two feature front-facing cameras. On the iPad 2, it's a VGA camera, 0.3 megapixels, while on the touchpad, it's a 1.3 megapixel one. The only difference is with the touchpad, it's only used for Skype video chats, whereas the iPad 2, you can use it for photos and taking videos. We like that both tablets have well-sized volume controls on the right side of each tablet, and they have a really good tactile response as well, but with the iPad 2 you have a vibrate switch to quickly mute its volume. Similarly, we find responsive dedicated power buttons with both tablets, but with the iPad 2 though, it's a little bit more pronounced, so it's easier to distinguish with your finger. One advantage that the touchpad has over the iPad 2 is that it offers stereo support with its left and right speakers, whereas on the iPad 2 it's only a single one. As far as connection ports are concerned, with the iPad 2 it has a proprietary one, obviously, while the touchpad relies on a standard micro USB port for data and also charging purposes. Lastly, the iPad 2 has the prestigious functionality of shooting photos and videos with its rear camera. Unfortunately, HP didn't put one in with the touchpad, so you don't have that functionality, and when you come to think about it, it's a little bit disappointing because even though tablets aren't the best for taking photos and videos, it would have been just nice to see it on board. Now we're just going to illustrate the kind of brightness output you can expect with both tablets, and as we mentioned already, the iPad 2 just has a brighter panel versus the one here with the touchpad, which looks rather dim. So the first thing we're going to show you here is just this colorful image, just to give you a better indication. You can tell with the white here on the side, it's a little bit more dim with the touchpad, but as far as color production, it's very neutral. We like the natural look, not overly saturated. I'm just going to quickly show you our website here too, just so you get a good view of it. You can tell right off the bat that the iPad 2 is just a lot brighter, so when it comes to using it in outdoor conditions, you're not going to have any problems with the iPad 2, whereas with the touchpad, you're going to probably have to shield it away from the sun. Let's talk about raw processing power. On the iPad 2, it features a dual-core 1GHz Apple A5 processor with the iOS experience, whereas the HP TouchPad features a webOS 3.0 with a dual-core 1.2 GHz Qualcomm Snapdragon processor. Now, between the two, they're next generation in terms of the hardware, but the iPad 2 just still exhibits better fluid movements, and overall, the performance is very, very responsive on the iPad 2. You could tell here just with the kinetic scrolling, just moving between the panel here, the app panel, There's just a slight lagginess, not as fluid looking with the touchpad. Again, with the iPad 2, it just excels in that aspect. Every swipe, it's a very tight, responsive feel to it. And at times, the touchpad seems to have just this general lagginess. It doesn't happen all the time, but you do notice things like long load times of apps and even some overall jerkiness to its operation. So as far as just fluidity and stability, we have to hand it to the iPad 2. When it comes to platform experience, both tablets utilize ones that were quite familiar before. With the iPad 2, it features the same look and style as an iPhone, and the HP TouchPad features webOS 3.0 and has also the same stylings as webOS for smartphones that we've seen in the past. The nice thing we like about both is that they're pretty much straightforward. There's no high learning curve in knowing how to use the platforms with both. Very nice size icons, not as complex as something like a BlackBerry OS or even Android to an extent, and we like the simpleness of their platforms. However, if there's one thing that we like about the HP touchpad with its webOS 3.0 experience over the iPad 2, it's the fact that it offers a better implementation of multitasking. It has this dynamic approach with its cards view. It gives you the nice visual cue of what's opened up, and you could switch between them. You also have a stacks feature just to better organize your open applications. Unfortunately, though, with the iPad 2, it's pretty much straightforward. It doesn't have any visual cues with its multitasking implementation. You basically have all your icons at the bottom here, and you can close them out. Whereas in the touchpad, you could basically swipe them out, and it's definitely an engaging experience. Additionally, we could say the same thing about the notifications with webOS 3.0. It's indeed not as obtrusive as iOS, where it just pops up on the screen when you get a message or notification from some application. With the touchpad, you get it all in the top right corner in the status bar. You have things even like the mini player available to you there, and then it just comes up and you just press it down, and you could either click on it to open up the application, and as overall, it's just a lot more friendly. As you can probably tell, the touchpad has a dedicated row for buttons, which is definitely useful and something that's not offered with the iPad 2. You got to get access to the secondary functions to get into that. But besides that, the overall experience, we have to say the iPad 2 is a little bit more responsive. It's very quick to typing here. It doesn't really slow down. It's pretty instantaneous. Whereas on the touchpad, at times it can slow down and there's some delays. Even worse, that we type up something and it doesn't come up, but a few seconds later it finally does. So who knows what it is, but the consistent experience we get out of the iPad 2's on-screen keyboard is a little bit better. On the surface, it might look like the email applications on both tablets are going to be the same, but in fact, there's a little bit of difference to it. With the iPad 2, it utilizes this layered approach. You have one in the background and something in the foreground here. It definitely works, and it's more than functional. I'll quickly show you this here. So when you get to your Gmail, click on email, it loads up just like that. Where on the touchpad, it's a little bit more refined. We definitely like its layout. It uses the three-panel system here. So for the same email, you have these different panels. You could move it around any way you want. And it's just a little bit easier as far as just organization. But when it comes to just functionality, there's still some things missing with the touchpad, such as threaded conversations, which is available with the iPad. But either way, we didn't have too much of an issue using the email clients. As we mentioned already, the iPad 2 just exhibits some more fluid tendencies with its operation versus the touchpad. And it's evident here with the kinetic scrolling of the web browser. Same thing applies to the pinch gestures here. It's just more instantaneous with the iPad 2. Load times, though, with the iPad 2 seems to load up complex web pages faster. But then again, it could be attributed to the Flash content with the touchpad for slightly longer times. But however, it does give you that true desktop-like experience. So either or, they're both going to be a fantastic experience. In all honesty, the music player interfaces on both tablets are pretty much identical with their layout. You can tell here you have this left and right panel. You have also your on-screen controls. Nothing really flashy about their appearance. As far as the audio quality, though, with their speakers, surprisingly, the iPad 2 single one produces the same volume tones as the 2 with the touchpad. But when it comes to watching videos, though, you definitely notice stereo support with the touchpad. Honestly, both tablets do fine when it comes to watching videos, just because there's plenty of detail and they move at a good frame rate. Though with the HP touchpad, though, it just has some jerkiness to its operation with 1080p videos. But with the iPad 2's brilliant looking display, a lot brighter as you could tell here, so it's easier on the eyes, especially if it's pretty sunny outside. Here's the Maps applications with both tablets. On the iPad 2, it's the Google Maps experience, while on the touchpad, it's powered by Bing Maps. On the Surface, they offer the same set of features, such as driving directions, transit, and even walking directions. You have even different types of maps that you could use. All in all, pretty much the same functionality. Showing the resemblance to one another again, we find it with the calendars application, and in all honesty, there's nothing really different about the two. You have different views, whether it's monthly, you have even a weekly view, and even a daily view, whichever one you want to look at. It just seems like the iPad 2 just optimizes it a little bit more just because it has a 2-pound view, while on the touchpad it just maximizes everything to fill the page. There's just a lot of extra unused space. Both tablets feature front-facing cameras, but the touchpad's only used for doing video chat through Skype, while on the iPad 2 you could use it to take photos and videos and also do video chats, whether it's FaceTime or even Skype. Quality, though, it's pretty good on both, surprisingly. Audio quality, as far as voice is concerned, pretty decent, more than audible. The video quality is also pretty good, good frame rate, especially when connected to Wi-Fi. When it comes to viewing photos on the tablets, you got to run the respective gallery apps. With the touchpad, it actually aggregates both photos and videos in one place, while on the iPad 2, you have 2 separate clients for that. You can tell with just kinetic scrolling, it's a lot more choppy looking with the touchpad, and it's sometimes a little bit delayed with it as well. As far as just the functionality of looking at photos, it's going to be the same. You could swipe through different photos that you have on here, just like so, and you could pinch zoom, zoom in, zoom out. As far as other functionality, they're pretty much the same. You can share it via email, and there's no editing functions whatsoever. As you can probably tell, there are icons for YouTube with both tablets, but when you click on the iPad 2, it launches a dedicated application, which is more than functional, a lot of features with it too, and it's optimized for tablet usage. Unfortunately, though, with the one with the touchpad, when you click it, it actually opens up the web browser and brings you to the website, the main one. It's not really optimized in any way, but it has flash support, so at least you get that functionality of watching videos. Watching the same movie on both tablets, we actually got a little bit more battery life out of the iPad 2 versus the touchpad. We set their brightness to both the maximum middle setting and the volume to their maximum setting. We had them also connected to the same Wi-Fi network. The iPad 2 managed to play for 10 hours continuously versus 8.5 hours with the touchpad. As far as normal everyday operation, they're actually going to be the same. Plenty of battery life, easily solid day, even for heavy users out there. So here's the thing about both tablets. They're both priced at $500. You got to really think about that for a second here, because with the iPad 2, you're going to get more bang for the buck, mainly because of the fact you have the functionality of actually shooting photos and videos with either the front-facing camera or the rear-facing one. Unfortunately, you don't have even the ability to do that with the touchpad. You can only use the front-facing camera for video chat. And for $500, you definitely feel like the iPad 2 feels just like that, a premium tablet, whereas the touchpad, not quite as much. Still feels like a solid device, but doesn't have the premium feel associated with the iPad 2. We do like the fact that the platform experience is pretty straightforward and simple. Definitely like the notifications aspect and even the multitasking element with the touchpad. It's definitely a lot better than what's offered with the iPad 2. Also, the third-party support is pretty impressive so far from what we've been checking out with the touchpad. It's a lot of nice third-party apps available from the onset, and definitely rivals some of those with the iPad 2. But seeing that the iPad has a head start for more than a year now, it has a great amount of quality third-party applications in the App Store as well. So ultimately, for $500, you're going to get a lot more value with the iPad 2 by far. So if you'd like to learn more about both tablets, you can check out our website, PhoneArena.com. Thanks for watching, everyone.